placing management. Although we are finding some success, it's not that we have not found success. But many corporates say that even with the regular people, to engage them and get productivity, we have a challenge. And here you're talking about getting a person at a managerial level. Especially from Indian corporates, this is one question I have. Second question is, sometimes when we give experienced senior people to companies for even short-term assignments, the person who is supposed to supervise them has a problem. He says sometimes he's coming with many years of experience. Now can I supervise this guy? Probably he's got more experience than the person who's going to supervise him.
Okay. So I'm not sure what the question is. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, these are two challenges. How that when regular people we are finding it difficult to engage and get productivity,
Yeah.
can we depend on a person who's coming for a short stint?
Okay, so
In a managerial role.
can I be controversial all over again?
Yeah.
20 years ago, that was the same question raised about female bosses. Okay? It's kind of... horrible. I have to deal with this separately. It is kind of there even now, but let me assure you, 20 years ago, people did not want to promote women to do supervisory roles because they did not know if men would find it acceptable or not. Correct? And it required a lot of working through culture, development, the whole focus on meritocracy, a lot of work on saying how do you certify a person as a people manager. So there is a lot of that work that's been done. If we want to now say that one of the big things we need to look at is saying how do we have managers in organizations who have more experience, they're in a stage of their lives where they want to have more flexible work arrangements, they want to work on contract. By the way, I want to work on contract. Okay, I didn't raise my hand when that question was asked, but I would love to do it. Then we need to start thinking of saying, what are the support systems and structures we need within organizations for them to be able to deal with this change? Just putting in a person is never going to solve this situation.
So can I answer it from an actual practical standpoint? And I'm now wearing the CEO NSDC hat of running NSDC as an organization. Because of the nature of work that we do, we have to hire a lot of short-term experts who have perhaps an experience that exceeds the collective experience of the others in NSDC, right? And when we start working with them, right, and we realize the challenges that you do, we actually have to work with the manager to be able to help them to be able to manage that situation. So if you're a staffing organization, you're facing the challenge, right, it is better to manage that situation. I'll give you a diametrically opposite example. I know you talked about managerial, but it is about managerial. One of our partners was training certain sectors for a blue chip corporate in India, and they were placing people. And most of the supervisors were happy. Few supervisors were expressing discontent. So what this company did, this organization did, it videographed 8,000 assessments of people that were going to be placed in this company. And as a strategy, placed the best people under that supervisor. And when the supervisor then complained, the first thing they showed the assessment results, both summative and formative, that is for classwork and this to that person, and said you actually got some of the best people, but the other people, other supervisors are getting more out of the guys who did worse than you are, so let's look at it. They did it for the next batch, and when the complaint came up, they bounced it up to the chief, to the owner of the company, and they displayed that first and second rung data to the owner. And then the supervisor was sent for a training program. So you have to find solutions. And it's reality. You're going to actually happen like this. Today, CFOs are being outsourced. You have a My CFO, coming in there, and we are advising a lot of our training partners use outsourced HR, use outsourced CFO because you can't afford to pay them.
Or regulatory and medical affairs. It's core, but it's being outsourced, or you have someone coming in and doing this as a flexi role.
Okay, I've been trying to get my question in for quite some time now.
Sort of.
In fact, The context quickly is, I'm loud enough, I think.
Not to them.
Okay, the context very quickly is more about the white collar flexi workforce than the blue collar. So I do understand that differentiation is a big issue and we need to be, fairness, etc. is a much bigger issue with the blue collar, and especially when they get injured. So I totally agree with your points on that, Mr. Ramkumar. But more about the kind of outsourcing, the kind of flexi workforce that Ms. Sangeeta was talking about. Now, as you described those people, I was also thinking of consultants. So my question is, what can we learn from consulting? Because a lot of the issues that you've described for flexi are similar for consultants, like, not using the gym, not having the same badge, blah, 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 and, working in one organization in the morning. I mean, I've done 4 different organizations as diverse as construction, process foods, blah, blah, blah in the day. And there was a time when consulting was also not very popular. Today, consulting is the #1 kind of organization that engineers and MBAs want to join when they leave. So what can flexi learn from consulting, which has become cool? What lessons from there can help make flexi cool? Because same issues, you're treated differently, but you're given much more respect.
I'll deflect it to Ram because though I have 1 inch to say in that, because I think, consulting is coming from here, and in my view, flexi comes from. Flexi is coming from here at this point of time. So, Ram, your thoughts?
No, I have 2 points. One, don't be too sure that the blue collar stuff is not happening in the white collar one. If you take the sales force outsourcing which is happening in India, you would be shocked what's happening there. Right? Pure variable based thing. So it's not, we shouldn't look at that only one part. See, you have to understand, for a consultant, there is no crisis of identity because he works for a consulting firm or he is a consultant. Thereafter, he is doing assignments with many people. There is no confusion there. The moment you say you are working for many people, I don't want the audience to misunderstand me as I'm anti-flexi or I'm not. I'm only making the point repeatedly by saying, how flexi is flexi, right? Is 3 months okay? 6 months okay? And again, coming back, we should not confuse supervisory managerial jobs with specialist jobs. Specialists are easy to be flexi because in your mind you're very clear that I'm a specialist, I'm walking in with a special skill, and I've been asked to do the special skill, I deliver the special skill, and I walk away. But whereas a managerial job, don't go by the title, is a job of leading people. So if you're going to be there for 3 months and you're required to handle some 30 people and to get some project moving out of them, you'd hardly get into the team in 3 months. But if you give him 1 year, the chances that that person will deliver are very high. 3 months, he or she will not be able to deliver. Let's be very clear about it. So those are the negotiations we need to do. The negotiation is not that there is no temping. The negotiation is not that there is no flexi. The negotiation, all of us, between the employers and the suppliers, we need to sit down and say, what tenor is a tenor in which productivity becomes easy? What tenor is a tenor in which people can deploy their skills effectively? And I think we're clever enough to do that conversation and arrive at something not regulatory, but I think it's very mutual, and it will work very well when we do that way. We have to be, in our mind, we have to be clear about what is that sweet spot in this game. Sweet spot for both. For the person who is selling a skill and the person who is buying that skill, it should be a sweet spot for both. If we can't find that sweet spot for both, it would be exploitation by one or the other. Either the flexi employee will exploit the employer, or the employer will exploit the flexi employee. So that is the key in my mind. And that will change from sector to sector, from the maturity of an industry to industry, and as Murali rightly said, of a first-time agri-based employee wanting a job to come, his outlook is very different to a person another person's outlook. So that's why I use the word governance structure. These are things we need to sit down and debate, and don't have to enshrine as a law, but we have to have them as norms and practices. Very voluntary, I mean.
Sorry. If I could just do one more this thing. I think staffing companies need to do a hell of a lot of brand building. Because nobody wants to, everybody is looking at saying, which is the company I am going to. They don't see a career for themselves or a strong brand in the staffing company, okay? And we see this in resumes. When we get resumes, you always get details of the company that they have worked in or been staffed into versus saying, I work for XYZ staffing company. Guess what? Large chunks of the IT industry is really contracting. But everybody is happy to say, I work for, okay, an HCL, an Infosys, a TCS, so on and so forth, though large parts of those people are actually on contract with somebody else. So I think staffing companies and temp companies need to seriously think of saying, how am I helping people build careers in my company where my core job is to give them careers in a functional area so that they are proudly on their resume say, I work for this, and the projects I have worked for are at Barclays Bank, ICICI Bank, so on and so forth.
Brilliant point, Sangeeta. The moment if the temping company says this is my employee and I have deputed him to this company to work for whatever month it is, in my mind, I think the security which the person will get will be very different.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent lesson.
Brilliant point.
If you give the deputy letter, not appointment letter, where will this come from?
Sorry?
A deputy, you give a deputation letter, not an appointment letter.
No, who is your employer? You have to be clear. If the employer, let's say I'm a staffing company, and I tell the people who I employ, I am the employer, I think this, I'm not saying it will delight the person, but it brings in huge security in the mindset, in the mind, to say that I have somebody who I look up to as an employer who doesn't change every 3 months.
My question is to on the practice currently, most of the temp staffing company give a deputy letter to the employee and not an appointment letter. Moment you give appointment, TCS gives appointment letter. The staffing company doesn't give appointment letter.
Yeah, my question is to both of you, Ram and Sangeeta, and to Dilip. Over the last 22 years of this industry, starting in India, one of the greatest struggles for us have been to generate a certain identity for this. As we are, this theme is Flexi is cool in the mind of the Flexi staff. This industry has been struggling to carve out an identity for ourselves, as distinct from the contractors, as distinct from the direct contract people and things like that. And I think the greatest struggle, when I see, for instance, Netherlands or Germany or US or any of the other places where this industry has assumed a certain identity sharper, much faster than what it's happened in India. They've all attempted to do what you said. This is my employee kind of a thing. There's no uncertainty about it. Building facilities for training, building structures supporting this person in some manner, holding on to that person with a certain ferocity. They will not very easily let a deputy go from here to another agency sort of a thing. All that has not been happening here. How does that happen? Here in this legacy of the Dalal sending people to work for someone else sort of a thing, legacy of these contractor, golden chain wearing contractor with the tight grip of the deputy, with all that stuff, will we ever go in that direction? I'm very disturbed with the last 5-6 years of complete commoditizing of the staffing business, this flexi staffing, with a certain collusion between the clients and the flexi staffing companies. Oftentimes, they get pushed to, if you're actually pushing down, last year it was 5%, this year it's 4.5%, next year it's 4% kind of a thing. How on earth will anybody be able to invest in any of these downstream stuff? That's a question and I was very hopeful when NSTC came alive, when NSTC first conceived with the three things, recruitment, assessment,